Avengers, Infinity War, directed by Anthony and Joe Russo and released in 2018, is a monumental entry in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, MCU, representing the apex of a decade-long narrative that interweaves multiple storylines, characters, and thematic arcs. The film ambitiously brings together nearly every hero introduced in the preceding 18 MCU films, culminating in an ensemble cast of unprecedented scale. Its narrative is driven by the pursuit of the Infinity Stones by the formidable antagonist, Thanos, whose existential philosophy of balance forms the backbone of the plot. The film opens with an immediate display of tension as Thanos attacks Thor's ship, setting the tone for a relentless, universe-spanning pursuit. The Russo brothers masterfully divide the narrative across multiple fronts: the Earthbound Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy in New York, Wakanda, and other locales, while simultaneously exploring Thanos' personal journey, adding depth to a villain whose complexity surpasses many traditional MCU antagonists. Thanos, portrayed with gravitas by Josh Brolin using cutting-edge motion capture technology, emerges not merely as a force of destruction but as a character with a disturbing ethical rationale: his belief that overpopulation necessitates radical intervention. This morally gray villainy challenges the heroes and audience alike, creating a tension that drives the emotional core of the film. Character development is both expansive and nuanced, given the limitations imposed by the vast ensemble. Tony Stark/Iron Man and Steve Rogers/Captain America continue their philosophical conflict regarding leadership, authority, and the responsibilities of power. Meanwhile, characters like Spider-Man, portrayed by Tom Holland, inject youthful exuberance, grounding the cosmic stakes in relatable human emotion. The introduction of Doctor Strange, Black Panther, and the Guardians of the Galaxy expands the narrative's geographical and thematic scope, while the tragic arc of Vision and Wanda Maximoff offers some of the film's most poignant emotional moments. Each subplot is carefully woven to balance humor, action, and pathos, although some critics have noted that the sheer volume of characters occasionally compromises individual screen time. From a technical perspective, Infinity War is a tour de force. The visual effects team, led by Industrial Light and Magic and Weta Digital, renders a visually coherent and immersive universe despite the vast variety of worlds, creatures, and cosmic phenomena. The climactic Battle of Wakanda exemplifies the seamless integration of practical and digital effects, with large-scale crowd scenes, digital doubles, and CGI seamlessly combined to maintain narrative clarity. Alan Silvestri's score provides both grandeur and intimacy, underscoring moments of high tension and reflective introspection, while the sound design punctuates the film's frenetic action sequences without overwhelming the viewer. Thematically, the film engages with questions of morality, sacrifice, and inevitability. The snap sequence Thanos' universe-altering act subverts traditional superhero storytelling by denying the heroes a conventional victory. This daring narrative choice not only shocked audiences but also expanded the genre's potential for philosophical engagement. The Russo brothers' willingness to embrace such narrative risk demonstrates a mature understanding of cinematic stakes and audience expectation, effectively leveraging the emotional investment built over the MCU's previous entries. Critically, Infinity War received widespread acclaim for its ambition, direction, performances, and visual storytelling. Box office numbers reflected its global impact, grossing over $2 billion worldwide, making it one of the highest-grossing films of all time. Its cultural resonance extended beyond cinematic entertainment, influencing fan discourse, merchandising, and even academic discussions on serialized storytelling and transmedia narrative structures. However, no work of such magnitude is without critique. Some reviewers pointed to the film's complex interweaving of plotlines as potentially overwhelming to casual audiences unfamiliar with prior MCU entries. The pacing, while generally effective, occasionally compresses character arcs, particularly for secondary heroes, leading to moments of emotional shorthand that require prior audience knowledge to fully appreciate. The film opens immediately with tension, placing Thor, Loki, and the remaining Asgardians aboard their ship following the destruction of their home in Thor, Ragnarok. The attack by Thanos and the Black Order is swift, violent, and emotionally charged. From the first frame, the stakes are established, the cosmic threat is personal and lethal. Thanos' entrance is visually imposing yet methodical, his calm and deliberate demeanor contrasts with the chaotic aggression of his followers, creating an unsettling tension. Loki's attempt to deceive Thanos and his subsequent death serve as both a narrative shock and a thematic prelude, signaling that this film will not guarantee safety for any hero. This opening sequence sets a tone of urgency, danger, and inevitable loss that pervades the entire narrative. After establishing Thanos' threat, the narrative shifts to New York, where Doctor Strange, Tony Stark, and Peter Parker confront an incursion by the Black Order. This sequence emphasizes character interplay, Peter Parker's youthful exuberance, Tony Stark's sardonic pragmatism, and Strange's enigmatic competence. The film balances humor with high stakes effectively here. Peter's witty quips and the awe-inspiring visuals of Strange's magic are interwoven without diminishing the danger. The Chitauri-style combat demonstrates Marvel's continued ability to blend large-scale action with intimate character moments, such as Peter's genuine fear and Tony's protective instincts. In parallel, the Guardians encounter Thanos when Gamora is kidnapped. This sequence is crucial for character exposition. Gamora's complex relationship with Thanos is revealed through their dialogue. Thanos' twisted logic and emotional manipulation provide the audience with insight into his psyche. The sequence also explores the moral ambiguity of the Guardians universe. While they are heroes, their world is chaotic and self-interested, emphasizing that heroism exists within shades of gray. The visuals are spectacular, with outer space action sequences that combine hand-to-hand combat, spaceship battles, and close-quarters tension, all choreographed to maintain clarity despite the fast pace. A significant portion of the narrative revolves around the pursuit of the 6 Infinity Stones. Each stone serves as a narrative and visual milestone. The Power Stone, though off-screen in this installment, is referenced for its destructive history, emphasizing the consequences of past events. The Space Stone, or Tesseract, continues to play a central role following Loki's theft and the Asgardian demise, highlighting the ramifications of misused cosmic power. The Reality Stone, the Ether, adds metaphysical weight through its transformative ability, while the Soul Stone, located on Vormir, reaches the narrative and emotional apex with Gamora's tragic sacrifice, juxtaposing Thanos' utilitarian philosophy with profound personal cost. The Time Stone, through Doctor Strange, underscores strategic foresight and ethical deliberation, and the Mind Stone, embodied by Vision, provides intimate stakes amid a galaxy-spanning conflict. The strategic pursuit of these stones allows the narrative to showcase heroes in diverse environments, maintaining a balance between ensemble action and individual character development. One of the film's most pivotal sequences is the Battle of Wakanda, where Captain America, Black Panther, and the Wakandan army defend Vision while the Avengers coordinate a global response. The sequence highlights strategic combat choreography, integrating CGI-enhanced armies with live-action heroics. Emotionally, the battle demonstrates leadership under pressure. Steve Rogers' tactical acumen contrasts with Black Panther's raw warrior instinct. Furthermore, the film emphasizes teamwork and sacrifice, as characters are continuously pushed to their physical and moral limits, reinforcing the narrative's persistent tension. Interwoven throughout the film are sequences dedicated to Thanos' internal conflict. Unlike many MCU villains, Thanos is not purely destructive. His moments of reflection, particularly in his interactions with Gamora, reveal a depth of character rarely afforded to blockbuster antagonists. The pivotal conversation where he chooses to sacrifice Gamora to obtain the Soul Stone is chilling and simultaneously tragic, offering a rare glimpse of emotional depth and moral complexity in a mainstream cinematic villain. These moments give weight to his eventual triumph, making the climactic snap devastatingly effective because it is earned narratively rather than feeling arbitrary. The final sequence, in which Thanos completes the Infinity Gauntlet and eliminates half of all life, subverts traditional superhero expectations. The narrative choice to end on a massive, irreversible loss rather than a climactic victory reinforces the stakes and leaves the audience with a lingering sense of uncertainty. The film balances multiple locations during the snap, showing heroes disintegrating across Earth, Titan, and Wakanda. This montage is both visually striking and emotionally devastating, underscoring the weight of Thanos' actions and the real consequences of wielding cosmic power. Tony Stark/Iron Man continuously evolves from an egocentric billionaire to a self-sacrificing strategist. His leadership is pragmatic, occasionally morally conflicted, and emotionally grounded. Steve Rogers/Captain America embodies ethical steadfastness and the tension between personal morality and global necessity, while Thor represents resilience and the cost of survival, continuing his emotional journey from Ragnarok. Gamora provides a tragic counterpoint, offering emotional resonance to Thanos' cosmic ambitions, and Doctor Strange balances foresight and ethical ambiguity, highlighting the complexity of choice when foreknowledge exists. While juggling multiple storylines, the Russo brothers maintain narrative coherence through careful editing and thematic links, particularly the pursuit of the Infinity Stones. Scene transitions often occur through character or cosmic movement rather than abrupt cuts, allowing the audience to follow simultaneous narratives without confusion. Nevertheless, secondary characters occasionally receive reduced screen time, requiring prior knowledge from earlier MCU films for full emotional impact. The technical achievements of Avengers: Infinity War are staggering, reflecting the culmination of years of iterative filmmaking within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. From the very first sequence, the cinematography establishes both scope and intimacy. The Russo brothers, collaborating with cinematographer Trent Opeluk, employ dynamic camera movements that allow the audience to feel embedded in the chaos of battle while maintaining narrative clarity. Close-ups are used strategically during moments of personal conflict, such as Thanos' interactions with Gamora, juxtaposed against sweeping wide shots of interstellar warfare. These choices ensure that while the film covers multiple fronts simultaneously, the viewer is never disoriented, and each scene maintains emotional resonance. Visual effects form the backbone of the cinematic experience. Industrial Light and Magic, Weta Digital, and Framestore contributed to an intricate tapestry of digital artistry, seamlessly blending real actors with fully CGI environments and characters. Thanos himself is a technical marvel. Motion capture technology combined with highly detailed facial animation allows Josh Brolin's performance to convey subtle emotional nuances, making the character one of the most compelling villains in superhero cinema. The portrayal avoids the flatness often associated with CGI characters, instead delivering a three-dimensional presence that conveys weight, emotion, and menace. Other complex effects include the depiction of magical constructs created by Doctor Strange, the fluid movements of the Guardians' ships through space, and the rendering of the massive Wakandan armies, each element crafted to preserve clarity and impact during large-scale action sequences. The sound design contributes equally to the immersive experience. From the low-frequency rumbles of Thanos' spaceship to the sharp metallic clash of combat sequences on Earth, the auditory landscape is meticulously designed to convey scale and tension. Ambient sounds are layered carefully, ensuring that action sequences remain legible and emotionally charged. Dialogue is mixed to maintain intelligibility even amidst cacophonous battles, allowing character moments to retain impact. Explosions, magical effects, and alien technology are given distinct auditory signatures, enabling the audience to track narrative elements audibly as well as visually. Complementing the soundscape is Alan Silvestri's score, which functions as both narrative guide and emotional amplifier. The music swells during heroic entrances, heightens tension during conflicts, and softens during introspective moments, subtly guiding the audience through the complex web of character arcs. Silvestri's motifs often echo thematic elements, linking disparate locations and character groups through auditory cues. For instance, the tension-laden sequences involving Thanos are scored with a brooding gravitas that underscores the villain's ideological conviction, while heroic moments, such as the Avengers' collective stand in Wakanda, are accentuated by soaring, triumphant themes. The integration of the score with sound design is particularly effective, allowing music and effects to coexist without competing, creating a fully immersive sensory experience. Lighting and color grading also play an essential role in narrative clarity and thematic emphasis. The film contrasts the cold, desaturated palette of Thanos environments with the warm, vivid tones of Earth and Wakanda, visually reinforcing the moral and emotional stakes of each location. Shadows and highlights are used to draw attention to characters' faces and expressions, while wide shots maintain an epic cinematic scale. The filmmaker's deliberate control over color, contrast, and light not only enhances aesthetic appeal but also subtly conveys narrative tone, influencing audience perception and emotional engagement. Editing is another cornerstone of technical mastery. Jeffrey Ford and Matthew Schmidt manage an unprecedented ensemble cast and multi-threaded narrative, ensuring pacing remains taut while allowing individual characters moments of development. Transitions between disparate locations are carefully orchestrated, often through thematic or visual connections, minimizing potential confusion. Action sequences are meticulously timed to maintain tension without sacrificing comprehensibility, blending rapid cuts with longer takes that highlight choreography and spatial awareness. Furthermore, the film's production design integrates practical effects, sets, and props with digital enhancements to create a coherent and tangible universe. Wakanda's landscapes, both urban and natural, are realized with a combination of physical sets and CGI extensions, providing actors with real environments to interact with while ensuring scale and spectacle. Similarly, the interior environments of Thanos' ship and various alien worlds are designed to reflect both functionality and narrative symbolism, reinforcing character psychology and thematic motifs through visual storytelling. In summary, the technical execution of Avengers: Infinity War exemplifies mastery across cinematography, visual effects, sound, score, lighting, editing, and production design. Every frame is composed with intention, balancing spectacle with character-driven storytelling. The seamless integration of multiple technical disciplines allows the film to maintain narrative clarity, emotional resonance, and immersive engagement, ensuring that the audience is not merely observing but experiencing the stakes, triumphs, and tragedies of a sprawling, intergalactic conflict. These achievements elevate the film beyond conventional superhero fare, setting a benchmark for large-scale ensemble storytelling in contemporary cinema. Avengers: Infinity War is not only a spectacle of action and visual mastery but also a profound exploration of themes, philosophy, and moral dilemmas that elevate it above conventional superhero narratives. Central to the film is the concept of balance, both in the universe and in the personal choices of its characters. Thanos embodies an extreme interpretation of utilitarian philosophy, believing that the elimination of half of all life is necessary to prevent overpopulation, resource depletion, and eventual extinction. His reasoning, though morally abhorrent, is presented with intellectual rigor, forcing the audience and the heroes themselves to confront unsettling questions: is the greater good ever worth the sacrifice of the innocent? Can ethical principles justify acts of mass destruction? By presenting a villain who is not motivated by simple malice but by a twisted form of rationality, the film challenges viewers to engage with moral complexity rather than rely on binary notions of good versus evil. The theme of sacrifice permeates the narrative. Gamera's death on Vormir represents the ultimate personal loss, highlighting the human cost of cosmic ambition. Her sacrifice is both literal and symbolic, emphasizing that the pursuit of power or ideological goals inevitably demands profound personal costs. Similarly, the Avengers face repeated moments where moral and strategic choices intersect with personal attachments, from Tony Stark and Steve Rogers navigating leadership conflicts to Wanda Maximoff grappling with the potential loss of Vision. These dilemmas ground the narrative emotionally, transforming larger-than-life action sequences into stories with human resonance. Fate and inevitability are explored throughout the film, particularly through Doctor Strange's foresight. The time-manipulating abilities of the Sorcerer Supreme introduce the concept that the future is neither fixed nor entirely malleable, but that certain outcomes may be predetermined. Strange's decision to surrender the Time Stone to Thanos to preserve the possibility of ultimate victory suggests that ethical decisions must sometimes account for long-term consequences rather than immediate outcomes. This philosophical thread reinforces the narrative tension, as the audience is left to reconcile the immediate despair of the snap with the faint glimmer of hope implied by Strange's cryptic foresight. It also raises questions about agency and predestination. To what extent can heroes influence events, and when must they accept that some forces are beyond control? The film also examines the psychological and emotional toll of heroism. Characters who have previously operated independently are forced into collaboration, highlighting differences in ideology, leadership style, and personal priorities. Tony Stark and Steve Rogers embody this tension, representing pragmatism versus moral absolutism, and their interactions reveal the difficulty of aligning principles with practical action. Thor's grief over the destruction of Asgard and the loss of his family underscores the emotional vulnerability of even the most powerful heroes, illustrating that courage and resilience are inseparable from human emotion. These character-driven explorations deepen the narrative, emphasizing that heroism entails moral and emotional labor as well as physical prowess. Additionally, the film addresses the ethical use of power. The Infinity Stones symbolize ultimate control over fundamental aspects of existence: time, space, reality, mind, soul, and power itself. How characters wield or protect these forces becomes a litmus test of morality. Thanos' totalizing vision contrasts with the Avengers' commitment to life, freedom, and cooperation, creating a philosophical dichotomy that drives the narrative. The stones serve not merely as plot devices but as metaphors for responsibility, temptation, and the consequences of unchecked authority. The narrative implicitly asks whether any individual, regardless of their intent, should possess absolute power, and what ethical frameworks must govern such possession. The interweaving of personal and cosmic stakes amplifies the thematic resonance. While the fate of the universe is at the forefront, the film never loses sight of individual human experiences: fear, loss, love, and loyalty. By juxtaposing the grandeur of intergalactic conflict with intimate character arcs, the film emphasizes that ethical and philosophical dilemmas are as present in personal relationships as in universal crises. This duality ensures that the audience remains emotionally invested, creating a narrative tension that is both intellectual and effective. Moreover, Infinity War explores the consequences of ideological rigidity versus adaptive morality. Thanos' unwavering commitment to his mission contrasts with the Avengers' capacity to compromise, strategize, and learn from one another. Yet, even the heroes face ethical compromises, forced to make quick decisions under extreme pressure, sometimes with life-or-death consequences for those around them. This interplay demonstrates that morality in crisis is rarely absolute; it is situational, relational, and often ambiguous. The audience is encouraged to reflect on their own ethical frameworks, questioning how far they would go to preserve life, justice, or survival. In sum, Avengers: Infinity War functions not only as a cinematic spectacle but also as a meditation on ethics, sacrifice, fate, and the nature of power. Its exploration of moral dilemmas, personal responsibility, and philosophical inquiry enriches the narrative, ensuring that the stakes are felt not only on a cosmic scale but also on an intimate, human level. By presenting heroes and villains alike with ethically complex challenges, the film encourages viewers to consider the consequences of choice, the cost of action, and the weight of responsibility in a universe where power and morality intersect in profound and often devastating ways. Avengers: Infinity War cannot be fully appreciated without considering its position within the broader Marvel Cinematic Universe, as it functions both as a culmination of prior narratives and a bridge to future events. The film relies heavily on character arcs established in earlier installments, requiring audiences to recall developments from a wide range of previous films, including Iron Man, Captain America, Civil War, Thor, Ragnarok, and the Guardians of the Galaxy series. Tony Stark's evolution from a self-centered industrialist to a morally conscious leader is fully realized here, as he confronts not only external threats but also the consequences of his past actions in creating advanced weaponry and participating in conflicts that shaped the galaxy. Similarly, Steve Rogers' trajectory from an idealistic soldier to a seasoned, morally resolute strategist reaches a critical juncture, as his leadership is tested in a multi-front war that demands cooperation, compromise, and ethical decision-making. Thor's arc is especially notable, as Infinity War builds directly on the personal growth explored in Thor: Ragnarok. Having lost his home and many of his people, Thor embodies the weight of survivor's guilt and the drive to take decisive, sometimes violent action against cosmic threats. His interactions with Rocket and the Guardians provide a mix of humor and emotional grounding, demonstrating that character development in the MCU has consistently balanced pathos and levity. Similarly, the Guardians themselves continue their arc of maturation, moving from a self-interested, chaotic group into heroes who recognize the broader stakes of the universe, even as their interpersonal conflicts persist. Star-Lord's impulsiveness, Rocket's cynicism, and Gamera's sense of moral responsibility all converge to heighten the narrative tension during their confrontations with Thanos. The film's handling of ensemble storytelling marks a significant evolution compared to previous MCU installments. Earlier films often focused on single protagonists or smaller groups of heroes, allowing more concentrated character development. In Infinity War, the Russo brothers face the unprecedented challenge of managing a sprawling cast while maintaining narrative clarity. Through strategic pairings and narrative compartmentalization, such as Tony Stark and Doctor Strange in New York or Captain America and Black Panther in Wakanda, the film ensures that each character receives meaningful engagement. Yet the film also highlights the limitations of such scope. Minor characters like Hawkeye or Ant-Man receive minimal attention, reflecting the inherent difficulty of balancing screen time across a universe of heroes. Despite these constraints, the film succeeds in creating coherent character arcs that resonate emotionally, often relying on prior audience investment for full impact. Fan reception has been a crucial measure of the film's success. The release of Infinity War was accompanied by unprecedented levels of anticipation, with audiences speculating about which characters would survive and how the narrative would integrate the Infinity Stones mythology. Social media discourse, fan theories, and pre-release marketing created a highly engaged global audience, amplifying both excitement and scrutiny. Upon release, critical and fan reactions largely converged on admiration for the film's ambition, technical mastery, and emotional resonance. Box office numbers reflected this enthusiasm, as the film grossed over $2 billion worldwide, surpassing previous MCU entries and securing its place as one of the highest-grossing films in cinematic history. The climactic snap sequence elicited particularly strong reactions, as it defied conventional superhero storytelling. Fans were both shocked and emotionally devastated by the sudden loss of beloved characters, generating a widespread conversation about the risks and consequences inherent in high-stakes narrative choices. Unlike typical blockbuster resolutions, the film denied the audience a traditional victory, compelling viewers to grapple with grief, uncertainty, and the ethical implications of Thanos' actions. This willingness to subvert expectations strengthened fan engagement, fostering discussion about narrative boldness and thematic complexity. Comparisons to earlier MCU films reveal a clear trajectory of increasing narrative and thematic sophistication. While Iron Man and the Avengers established foundational concepts of heroism, teamwork, and spectacle, Infinity War expands these themes to a cosmic scale while integrating complex moral questions. The film's capacity to interweave multiple character arcs, maintain continuity with prior storylines, and simultaneously introduce new players such as Doctor Strange, Black Panther, and the expanded Guardians cast demonstrates a matured approach to franchise storytelling. Moreover, it sets a precedent for serialized cinematic universes, showing that blockbuster films can sustain narrative depth, philosophical inquiry, and intertextual cohesion without sacrificing entertainment value. Audience investment is further reinforced by the continuity of performances across films. Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, and Brie Larson, among others, bring layered portrayals that reflect years of cumulative character development. These performances allow viewers to appreciate the evolution of each character within the broader universe, deepening emotional impact. Supporting characters, including the members of Wakanda, the Guardians, and secondary Avengers, add texture and diversity, enriching the narrative even if screen time is limited. This integration of character histories, intertextual references, and ongoing arcs demonstrates a careful orchestration of cinematic universe building, rewarding attentive and long-term viewers with a richer, more nuanced experience. The film's cultural and fan impact also extends beyond traditional metrics of box office revenue and critical acclaim. Infinity War has inspired discussions about morality, sacrifice, and the nature of heroism, not only among film enthusiasts but also in academic and philosophical contexts. Its narrative choices encourage debates about ethical dilemmas, the consequences of absolute power, and the psychological dimensions of grief and responsibility. By combining blockbuster spectacle with substantive thematic inquiry, the film elevates the superhero genre, providing material for both entertainment and intellectual engagement. In summary, Avengers: Infinity War functions as a narrative fulcrum within the MCU, synthesizing character arcs, philosophical themes, and fan investment accumulated over nearly 2 decades of storytelling. Its successful integration of prior developments, coupled with bold narrative risks, has cemented its status as a defining moment in contemporary cinema. By balancing expansive ensemble storytelling, emotional resonance, and ethical complexity, the film continues to engage audiences and critics alike, ensuring its enduring relevance within both the franchise and the broader cultural landscape. This section adds significant depth toward your 50K word goal by connecting Infinity War to the larger MCU, emphasizing character arcs, and analyzing fan reception and cultural impact. The battles in Avengers: Infinity War are meticulously orchestrated, serving both spectacle and narrative purpose, and they reveal the filmmaker's careful attention to choreography, spatial dynamics, and emotional resonance. The opening encounter aboard Thor's ship establishes a high-stakes standard for combat throughout the film. Thanos and the Black Order's assault is immediate and overwhelming, demonstrating not only brute force but also strategic precision. Each movement, from the coordinated attacks of Ebony Maw to the ferocity of Cull Obsidian, emphasizes the skill and individuality of the antagonists, while the Asgardians' responses reflect their desperation and courage. The sequence balances tension with clarity, ensuring that the audience can follow each confrontation without becoming disoriented, while simultaneously reinforcing the stakes of Thanos' mission. Following this, the Earthbound confrontation in New York showcases a different type of combat, blending street-level heroics with cosmic implications. Tony Stark's Iron Man armor is deployed in full kinetic mode, integrating repulsor blasts, missiles, and close-quarters combat maneuvers, while Spider-Man's agility introduces acrobatic fluidity to the fight. Doctor Strange manipulates the environment through intricate magical constructs, creating a visually stunning interplay between physical and mystical elements. The choreography emphasizes character-specific abilities and personalities. Peter Parker's youthful improvisation contrasts with Tony Stark's methodical precision, and Strange's calculated control demonstrates his mastery over time and space. The sequence's pacing allows tension to escalate naturally, with each hero's contribution strategically timed to maximize impact and narrative coherence. The Guardians' encounter with Thanos on Nohir provides an additional layer of complexity, combining individual skill with group dynamics. Gamera's strategic engagement highlights her moral awareness and combat expertise, while Star-Lord and Drax inject both chaotic energy and humor, creating a balance that keeps the scene engaging despite its lethal stakes. The choreography of this confrontation emphasizes verticality, aerial maneuvers, and environmental interaction, leveraging the three-dimensional space of Nowhere's landscape. Rocket and Groot's technical ingenuity adds another dimension to the battle, integrating inventive gadgetry into the physical and magical melee. Thanos, in contrast, moves with a deliberate and almost inexorable force. His strength, and precision underscoring the imbalance between the heroes and their adversary. This disparity is central to the narrative, reinforcing the sense that victory will not come easily and that loss is a genuine possibility. The sequence on Titan, where several heroes confront Thanos directly, represents a masterclass in ensemble choreography. Iron Man, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Star-Lord, Drax, and Mantis coordinate a series of attacks designed to exploit Thanos' weaknesses, demonstrating both tactical sophistication and collaborative ingenuity. The choreography is intricate, with rapid transitions between aerial maneuvers, hand-to-hand combat, and magical manipulation. Each hero's unique abilities are highlighted, and the filmmakers use camera movement to maintain spatial clarity while conveying the urgency of the battle. Dramatic tension peaks as the heroes appear to gain the upper hand, only for Thanos' strategic foresight and raw power to counter their efforts, reinforcing the narrative theme of inevitability and raising the emotional stakes. The Battle of Wakanda serves as the film's most extensive combat set piece, combining mass choreography with character-driven stakes. Captain America, Black Panther, and the Wakandan army coordinate defensive formations against the invading Outriders, while the Avengers attempt to protect Vision. The choreography integrates large-scale army movements with personal heroics, balancing spectacle and intimacy. Black Panther's agility and tactical awareness, Captain America's leadership, and the Avengers' diverse abilities converge to create a multi-layered engagement. The sequence uses environmental elements such as terrain, architecture, and natural features to enhance both visual interest and strategic complexity, while visual effects seamlessly integrate CGI creatures and armies with live-action performers. Emotional resonance is heightened by the stakes of protecting Vision, and individual moments of heroism, such as Shuri and Okoye's defensive actions, reinforce character identities amidst the chaos. The climactic confrontation reaches its apex when Thanos completes the Infinity Gauntlet. The choreography here emphasizes inevitability and inevitability's emotional weight. The heroes' combined efforts, while formidable, ultimately prove insufficient, and the snap sequence employs a montage of destruction across multiple locations, each meticulously composed to maintain clarity and emotional engagement. The spatial coordination, timing, and pacing of the scene allow the audience to follow simultaneous events without losing narrative coherence. The juxtaposition of physical struggle, strategic decision-making, and cosmic consequence elevates the sequence beyond mere spectacle, transforming it into a meditation on sacrifice, power, and the limitations of heroism. Throughout the film, fight sequences are not merely displays of action but vehicles for character expression. The choreography reflects each hero's personality, ethical approach, and emotional state. Spider-Man's improvisation communicates youthful adaptability and courage, Iron Man's precision reflects calculated responsibility, and Thanos' measured dominance conveys moral certainty intertwined with physical supremacy. Even secondary characters' engagements, though brief, are designed to reinforce thematic and emotional undercurrents, creating a rich tapestry of conflict that is narratively, visually, and emotionally coherent. In addition, the filmmakers employ cinematic techniques such as long takes, dynamic tracking shots, and varying camera angles to heighten immersion and clarity. Close-up shots during moments of personal struggle contrast with wide shots of large-scale battles, allowing viewers to oscillate between micro-level emotion and macro-level spectacle. The integration of practical effects with CGI ensures that actors' performances anchor the sequence in reality, enhancing believability even in scenes featuring otherworldly powers or alien landscapes. The result is a series of battles that are not only visually spectacular but also narratively consequential, ensuring that each confrontation advances character arcs, thematic motifs, and overall plot development. In summary, the battle sequences in Avengers: Infinity War exemplify meticulous planning, inventive choreography, and integration of character-driven storytelling. The film succeeds in maintaining clarity across sprawling multi-location engagements, balancing spectacle with emotional depth. Each fight conveys narrative stakes, reinforces character identity, and contributes to overarching themes of sacrifice, collaboration, and the ethical burden of power. By combining technical mastery with dramatic resonance, these sequences transform standard superhero combat into cinematic events that are both thrilling and profoundly meaningful, anchoring the audience's emotional investment even as the film's ultimate outcome subverts conventional expectations. The emotional impact of Avengers: Infinity War is one of its defining features, distinguishing it from many other blockbuster films. The narrative stakes are not abstract, they carry real consequences for characters who have been developed over the course of nearly a decade of storytelling. From the opening moments aboard Thor's ship to the climactic snap, the audience is placed in a state of sustained tension, emotionally invested in the lives of both major and supporting characters. Loki's death early in the film serves as a shock not only for its narrative implications but for its personal resonance, marking a poignant loss that underscores the film's willingness to challenge audience expectations. Similarly, the disintegration of heroes such as Spider-Man, Black Panther, and Doctor Strange during the snap elicits a profound sense of grief, amplified by the audience's long-term investment in these characters across multiple films. The emotional weight of these moments transforms the film from a spectacle of action into a meditation on loss, mortality, and the fragility of heroism. Audience reactions were immediate and intense, reflecting the film's ability to engage viewers on both intellectual and emotional levels. Social media platforms were flooded with responses ranging from shock and sadness to admiration for the film's bold narrative choices. Memes, tributes, and discussions proliferated, demonstrating how deeply the audience connected with the events unfolding on screen. The decision to allow Thanos to achieve victory, rather than offering the conventional triumphant resolution, was particularly controversial, sparking debates about the nature of storytelling in blockbuster cinema. Fans praised the film for its narrative courage, recognizing that by defying expectations, it created a more authentic and emotionally resonant experience. This discourse extended beyond casual viewers, with critics analyzing the film's thematic depth, character arcs, and moral complexity in both popular and academic contexts. The lasting legacy of Infinity War is further cemented by its influence on subsequent MCU films and the broader landscape of superhero cinema. The snap, a moment that irrevocably alters the MCU's narrative trajectory, set a new standard for serialized storytelling in mainstream cinema, demonstrating that high-budget films could embrace risk and ambiguity. The film's willingness to juxtapose spectacle with moral and emotional complexity encouraged other franchises to explore deeper thematic content, showing that blockbuster films need not sacrifice narrative sophistication for commercial appeal. Moreover, the integration of a massive ensemble cast while maintaining individual character arcs provided a blueprint for managing sprawling cinematic universes, influencing how studios plan interconnected stories across multiple films and media platforms. The film also achieved a significant cultural impact through its representation of diverse characters and settings. The inclusion of Black Panther and Wakanda highlighted Afrofuturist aesthetics and African cultural motifs, providing a visually rich and socially resonant backdrop for one of the film's central conflicts. Similarly, the Guardians of the Galaxy's diverse ensemble, featuring characters from multiple planets and species, reinforced themes of inclusion and the value of collaboration across differences. These representations contributed to the audience's emotional investment and fostered broader discussions about diversity, representation, and identity within blockbuster cinema. The resonance of these cultural touchpoints demonstrates the filmmaker's ability to weave social relevance into a narrative that is simultaneously entertaining and thought-provoking. Critically, the film's balance of narrative, technical mastery, and emotional resonance has been widely recognized. Reviewers praised the integration of character-driven storytelling with large-scale visual spectacle, noting that the film's ambition was matched by its execution. The performances of the ensemble cast, particularly Josh Brolin's portrayal of Thanos, were highlighted for their depth and nuance, demonstrating that even in a CGI-heavy blockbuster, acting remains a central component of audience engagement. The film's direction, editing, and pacing were lauded for maintaining coherence across multiple storylines and locations, ensuring that the emotional stakes were never overshadowed by spectacle. Its critical and commercial success affirmed that audiences were receptive to high-concept storytelling within the superhero genre, provided it is executed with clarity, precision, and emotional authenticity. In terms of lasting legacy, Infinity War has become a touchstone for discussions about serialized storytelling, moral complexity, and the evolution of the superhero genre. It has inspired a generation of filmmakers to pursue ambitious, interconnected narratives while prioritizing character development and thematic depth. Fans continue to revisit the film not only for its visual spectacle but also for its ethical and emotional dimensions, analyzing Thanos' philosophy, the hero's moral dilemmas, and the implications of the snap. Its influence extends into merchandising, popular culture, and academic discourse, cementing its status as more than just a film, but as a cultural milestone within the cinematic landscape. Ultimately, the emotional resonance, audience engagement, and lasting cultural impact of Avengers: Infinity War exemplify its success as a cinematic achievement. The film's ability to combine high-stakes action with nuanced character development, moral inquiry, and emotional authenticity ensures that it remains a benchmark for blockbuster storytelling. By challenging conventions, embracing narrative risk, and fostering deep audience investment, the film transcends the limits of genre, creating an experience that is both entertaining and profoundly meaningful. Its legacy endures not only within the MCU but in the broader context of modern cinema, demonstrating the potential of popular films to explore complex ideas while captivating global audiences on an unprecedented scale. In Avengers: Infinity War, character arcs are central to both the emotional resonance and narrative coherence of the film, with each hero's journey reflecting their history, choices, and responses to unprecedented cosmic threats. Tony Stark, or Iron Man, exemplifies the culmination of a decade-long evolution. Once a self-centered billionaire, Stark has grown into a strategist who weighs the ethical consequences of his actions. His interactions with Doctor Strange highlight his pragmatic approach to problem-solving, as he balances immediate threats with long-term implications. The film forces Tony into situations that test his moral judgment and personal attachment, particularly his concern for Peter Parker and his willingness to confront Thanos directly despite overwhelming odds. This arc reinforces his transformation from individualistic hero to self-sacrificing protector, setting the stage for his eventual actions in subsequent MCU installments. Steve Rogers, or Captain America, continues his trajectory from idealistic soldier to seasoned leader confronted with moral complexity. Throughout the film, Rogers is forced to reconcile his principles with practical necessities. His leadership in Wakanda, guiding the Avengers and local forces in a defensive strategy, demonstrates both tactical acumen and ethical steadfastness. However, the film also explores Rogers' vulnerabilities. His insistence on protecting others and his commitment to doing what is right exposes him to emotional strain, particularly as losses accumulate. The tension between Rogers and Stark, established in Civil War, persists here, illustrating how ideological differences influence decision-making even in life-or-death scenarios. This nuanced portrayal emphasizes that heroism entails moral as well as physical courage, and that leadership carries an emotional burden. Thor's arc in the film emphasizes resilience, grief, and the transformative nature of loss. Following the destruction of Asgard and the decimation of his people, Thor carries profound survivor's guilt. His journey in Infinity War is driven by the desire to prevent further suffering and to assert agency against an overwhelmingly powerful adversary. Interactions with Rocket and the Guardians inject both levity and relational depth, allowing Thor to confront his trauma while forming new bonds. The film emphasizes that power and emotional growth are intertwined. Thor's acquisition of Stormbreaker symbolizes not only physical empowerment but also a renewed sense of purpose, bridging personal loss with cosmic responsibility. Gamera's character arc is particularly poignant, representing the tension between familial loyalty, moral agency, and the demands of survival. Her relationship with Thanos is fraught, characterized by both fear and reluctant understanding. The revelation that Thanos raised her with twisted affection complicates her decisions and heightens the stakes of her eventual sacrifice on Vormir. Gamora embodies the human cost of Thanos' philosophy, and her death reverberates across the narrative, impacting multiple characters emotionally and strategically. Her arc underscores the moral complexity of heroism, illustrating that courage often entails personal loss and that ethical choices are rarely simple in the context of cosmic warfare. Doctor Strange demonstrates a distinct arc of foresight and calculated restraint. Unlike other heroes, Strange must navigate the interplay between immediate action and long-term consequence, leveraging his mastery over time to protect not only individual lives but also the potential for eventual success. His decision to surrender the Time Stone to Thanos is emblematic of this strategic pragmatism, prioritizing the broader cosmic plan over immediate emotional satisfaction. Strange's arc highlights the ethical responsibility inherent in possessing knowledge and power, illustrating that heroism extends beyond physical prowess to encompass moral deliberation and foresight. The Guardians of the Galaxy experience continued development as a team and as individuals. Star-Lord's impulsivity, Rocket's cynicism, Drax's blunt honesty, and Mantis' empathy converged during their confrontations with Thanos, reflecting both interpersonal conflict and collaborative problem-solving. Gamora's presence among them emphasizes moral clarity and sacrifice, contrasting with the Guardians' more chaotic approach to heroism. These interactions deepen the emotional texture of the film, revealing how relationships and personality dynamics influence decision-making in high-stakes scenarios. Vision and Wanda Maximoff provide one of the most intimate and emotionally charged arcs in the film. The Mind Stone embedded within Vision represents both immense power and vulnerability, and their relationship foregrounds the personal stakes amidst cosmic conflict. Wanda's moral struggle to protect Vision, culminating in her confrontation with Thanos, demonstrates the interplay between love, duty, and ethical responsibility. Their arc exemplifies how individual relationships are elevated to narrative significance in a film with expansive scope, ensuring that audience investment remains deeply personal even as universal threats loom. Secondary characters, though receiving less screen time, contribute meaningfully to the narrative through concise yet impactful arcs. Black Panther and the Wakandan forces display loyalty, tactical expertise, and cultural depth, reinforcing themes of communal heroism and collective responsibility. Spider-Man, as the youthful embodiment of hope and resilience, experiences terror, wonder, and growth, particularly in his interactions with Tony Stark and during the Snap, which serves as his first encounter with irreversible loss on a massive scale. These arcs collectively emphasize that heroism exists across generations, species, and moral perspectives, creating a multifaceted exploration of courage and sacrifice. Thanos himself possesses one of the most fully realized arcs of the film. Unlike traditional villains motivated by malice or ambition alone, Thanos operates from a moral and philosophical rationale, however extreme and ethically indefensible. His quest for the Infinity Stones is both pragmatic and emotionally resonant, culminating in his willingness to sacrifice Gamora. Thanos' arc humanizes the antagonist without excusing his actions, providing narrative weight to the hero's struggles and creating a sense of tragic inevitability. The consequences of his actions ripple through every character's arc, unifying the film's sprawling narrative around a central philosophical challenge, the ethical use of power and the cost of attaining one's goals. In conclusion, Avengers: Infinity War weaves together individual character arcs to create a cohesive, emotionally resonant narrative. Each hero confronts personal, ethical, and relational challenges that intersect with the cosmic stakes of Thanos' quest. The film balances ensemble storytelling with intimate character exploration, ensuring that the consequences of each action, whether heroic or morally ambiguous, carry weight. These arcs provide both narrative cohesion and emotional depth, demonstrating that even within the grand scale of intergalactic conflict, the personal growth, relationships, and choices of individual characters remain central to the story's impact and enduring resonance. Avengers: Infinity War is rich with symbolism, layered references, and narrative foreshadowing, which deepen the film's resonance for both dedicated and casual viewers. From the outset, the Infinity Stones themselves serve as powerful symbols of ultimate power, responsibility, and the ethical dilemmas inherent in possessing unchecked control. Each stone represents not only a cosmic force but also a philosophical concept. The Space Stone embodies mobility and control over the universe's fabric, the Mind Stone signifies knowledge and consciousness, the Reality Stone highlights perception versus truth, the Soul Stone reflects life, death, and moral sacrifice, the Time Stone represents the consequences of foresight, and the Power Stone illustrates the destructive potential inherent in ambition. By weaving these symbolic objects into the narrative, the film grounds its spectacle in metaphorical meaning, reinforcing that every battle is not only physical but also ethical and existential. Throughout the film, numerous Easter eggs and references to prior MCU events reward long-term fans while reinforcing narrative continuity. The return of characters such as Bucky Barnes, Sam Wilson, and the Wakandan royal family provides connective tissue to earlier films, establishing stakes and deepening the audience's emotional engagement. Loki's death, accompanied by his final words and actions, evokes his character arc from Thor through the Avengers, providing a bittersweet closure while simultaneously echoing themes of deception, loyalty, and self-sacrifice. The visual cues, dialogue, and contextual references frequently nod to prior plotlines, from the collapse of Asgard in Ragnarok to the consequences of the Sokovia Accords in Civil War, creating a sense of continuity and cumulative storytelling that rewards invested audiences. The film employs subtle narrative foreshadowing to heighten tension and suspense. Doctor Strange's cryptic warning to Tony Stark, "We're in the endgame now," functions as both literal foreshadowing of subsequent films and thematic reinforcement of inevitability. Similarly, conversations between Thanos and Gamora hint at her eventual fate, creating dramatic irony as the audience anticipates the moral and emotional consequences of Thanos' quest. Small visual cues, such as the placement of the Infinity Stones or the alignment of heroes during battle sequences, foreshadow future confrontations and highlight the interconnectedness of the narrative. These elements encourage viewers to actively engage with the story, analyzing details that may initially appear insignificant but gain significance upon reflection or in later films. Symbolism also extends to the film's treatment of sacrifice and choice. Gamora's death on Vormir functions as both a narrative pivot and a symbolic act, representing the painful ethical calculus that drives the plot. Her sacrifice emphasizes that heroism often entails personal loss, while Thanos' willingness to commit such an act illustrates the moral complexity of his character. Similarly, Vision's vulnerability and the Avengers' efforts to protect him symbolize the fragility of life even in a universe populated by superhuman beings. These narrative and symbolic choices reinforce the themes of mortality, ethical responsibility, and the consequences of wielding power, ensuring that every conflict carries emotional and philosophical weight. The integration of prior MCU events is particularly evident in the film's treatment of character motivations and relationships. Tony Stark's guilt over the creation of advanced weaponry and his prior conflicts with Steve Rogers directly influence his decisions, while Thor's experiences during Ragnarok shape his emotional responses and strategic approach. The Guardians' dynamics reflect developments from their individual films, including Peter Quill's impulsivity, Rocket's technical genius, and Gamora's moral clarity. By tying these arcs to previous narratives, the film enhances both the stakes and the audience's understanding of each character's choices, making the consequences of the snap and other pivotal events all the more impactful. The film also utilizes foreshadowing to underscore thematic resonance across the MCU. The narrative structure hints at eventual outcomes without fully revealing them, creating anticipation and speculation that extends beyond the theater. For example, Doctor Strange's actions with the Time Stone suggest a larger cosmic plan, while the subtle interplay between Thanos' philosophical reasoning and his eventual success indicates that future narratives will grapple with the aftermath of moral compromise and catastrophic consequences. This strategic foreshadowing ensures that Infinity War functions not only as a standalone story but also as a critical junction within the overarching MCU, connecting past, present, and future events. Furthermore, visual symbolism and production design reinforce the narrative's thematic depth. The contrasting color palettes of different environments, cold, desaturated tones on Thanos' ship versus the warm vibrancy of Wakanda, signal both moral and emotional stakes. The design of Thanos' armor, weapons, and environments reflects his ideological rigidity, while the Guardian's eclectic aesthetic emphasizes creativity, individuality, and moral diversity. These visual cues operate on both conscious and subconscious levels, guiding audience perception and deepening engagement with the narrative's symbolic framework. In conclusion, the richness of Avengers: Infinity War lies not only in its action and spectacle but also in its intricate use of symbolism, references, and foreshadowing. Each Infinity Stone, each dialogue cue, and each visual detail contributes to a layered narrative that rewards attentive viewers and reflects the cumulative history of the MCU. By embedding meaning within objects, actions, and settings, the film elevates its storytelling, creating a cinematic experience that is intellectually engaging, emotionally resonant, and narratively cohesive. These elements ensure that the film operates on multiple levels, offering entertainment, thematic reflection, and continuity within the broader universe, solidifying its legacy as a masterful installment in the franchise. Avengers: Infinity War represents a remarkable achievement in narrative structure, balancing multiple storylines across diverse locations while maintaining coherence, pacing, and thematic unity. Unlike earlier MCU films, which primarily focused on a single protagonist or a small ensemble, Infinity War interweaves the journeys of nearly 30 major characters, each with distinct motivations, emotional stakes, and relational dynamics. This multi-threaded approach is unprecedented in superhero cinema, and its success relies on meticulous planning, editing, and thematic consistency. The Russo brothers employ a carefully structured narrative framework, alternating between earthbound conflicts, cosmic pursuits, and Thanos' own philosophical journey, allowing the audience to engage with each plotline without losing sight of the overarching narrative tension. Pacing is critical in maintaining audience engagement across such a sprawling narrative. The film opens with immediate tension, setting a relentless tempo that continues through successive sequences, yet it also strategically incorporates moments of pause, introspection, and character-driven interaction. These quieter moments, such as Gamera's conversations with Thanos or Wanda Maximoff's emotional dilemma regarding Vision, provide necessary emotional breathing space, allowing viewers to process high-stakes action sequences and connect with the characters on a personal level. The alternation between large-scale spectacle and intimate drama ensures that the narrative momentum never becomes monotonous or overwhelming, while also reinforcing thematic depth. Each sequence is designed with narrative purpose, no action exists solely for spectacle, and every confrontation advances character arcs or philosophical inquiry. Comparatively, earlier MCU entries such as the Avengers or Captain America: Civil War introduced ensemble storytelling but on a smaller scale. Infinity War elevates this approach, demonstrating mastery in managing simultaneous narratives that converge at critical moments. The coordination of multiple heroes across different continents and planets, each with unique abilities and ethical considerations, exemplifies the film's structural sophistication. By compartmentalizing conflicts, for example, New York with Stark, Parker, and Strange, Titan with the Guardians and Avengers, and Wakanda with Rogers, Black Panther, and supporting forces, the film ensures clarity and audience comprehension, allowing each subplot to contribute meaningfully to the central theme of confronting Thanos and the consequences of unchecked power. Thematic coherence is maintained through the consistent exploration of power, responsibility, sacrifice, and moral ambiguity. Every storyline, regardless of location or character focus, reinforces these motifs. Thor's personal quest for vengeance and survival, Tony Stark's ethical decision-making, and Thanos' philosophical rationale all intersect thematically, creating a unified narrative experience. Even moments of humor, such as Rocket's sarcastic interjections or Peter Quill's impulsive antics, are grounded in character development and serve to humanize the stakes rather than disrupt narrative flow. This careful calibration of tone ensures that the film's emotional highs and lows are both believable and impactful, preserving the integrity of the narrative despite its immense scope. Within the broader cinematic context, Infinity War pushes the boundaries of blockbuster storytelling. Its complex narrative structure, intertextual references, and ethical complexity distinguish it from traditional action-oriented franchises. Whereas many large-scale films rely primarily on spectacle and straightforward moral dichotomies, Infinity War integrates philosophical reflection, long-term character investment, and interconnected plotlines that span multiple films. This approach not only deepens audience engagement but also establishes a model for serialized cinematic universes, demonstrating that mass-market entertainment can accommodate narrative sophistication, thematic richness, and emotional depth. The film's structural design also reinforces audience investment by leveraging prior knowledge of the MCU. Character decisions, ethical dilemmas, and relational conflicts are amplified by continuity with previous installments. The tension between Stark and Rogers is rooted in Civil War, Thor's grief is informed by Ragnarok, and Gamera's moral integrity is established in her Guardians arc. By maintaining thematic and narrative continuity, the film ensures that each emotional beat resonates with cumulative significance, transforming spectacle into meaningful narrative consequence. Viewers who have followed the franchise are rewarded with layered storytelling, while casual audiences are still able to engage with the immediate stakes and action sequences. Moreover, the film's climax, culminating in the snap, exemplifies narrative risk-taking and structural audacity. By denying the heroes a conventional victory, the film subverts audience expectations and reinforces the thematic exploration of sacrifice, inevitability, and moral complexity. This structural choice demonstrates that blockbuster films can challenge conventional storytelling norms without alienating viewers, providing both entertainment and intellectual engagement. The juxtaposition of triumph, tragedy, and uncertainty ensures that the narrative resonates on multiple levels, leaving a lasting impact on both fans and critics. In essence, Avengers: Infinity War achieves a masterful synthesis of narrative structure, pacing, and thematic coherence, establishing new benchmarks for ensemble storytelling within the MCU and contemporary cinema. Its ability to interweave multiple character arcs, maintain emotional resonance, and explore philosophical themes while delivering unprecedented spectacle underscores the film's significance. By balancing structural complexity with accessibility, the film demonstrates that blockbuster cinema can simultaneously entertain, challenge, and inspire, solidifying its place as a landmark achievement in modern filmmaking and a model for future cinematic universes. Dialogue in Avengers: Infinity War functions as both narrative propulsion and character development, seamlessly integrating humor, tension, and philosophical reflection. The Russo brothers and screenwriters carefully craft exchanges that reveal personality, establish relationships, and convey stakes, ensuring that even amidst cosmic devastation, the film remains grounded in human experience. Tony Stark's trademark wit punctuates many of the most intense sequences, providing levity while simultaneously emphasizing his intelligence and problem-solving acumen. His quips, particularly in confrontations with Doctor Strange or Spider-Man, reveal a hero whose humor serves both as a coping mechanism and a strategic tool, diffusing tension while maintaining focus on the objective. This balance between comedic timing and narrative function ensures that humor never undermines the story's gravity, but instead enriches it by adding depth to character interactions. Spider-Man, as a youthful counterpart to Stark, contributes to the film's humor through both naivete and earnestness. His dialogue is often infused with wonder, fear, and moral clarity, highlighting his relative inexperience while also showcasing his courage. The interplay between Spider-Man and Tony Stark is particularly effective. The older, world-weary Stark provides guidance and mentorship, while Peter's idealism and impulsiveness challenge Stark's pragmatism. This dynamic reinforces central themes of mentorship, growth, and moral responsibility, demonstrating that interpersonal dynamics are as critical to the narrative as the overarching cosmic conflict. Even brief exchanges, such as Peter's quips during battle or his final moments before the snap, carry substantial emotional weight because of the audience's investment in his character arc. Doctor Strange's dialogue adds a layer of philosophical depth to the narrative. His exchanges, often cryptic and strategic, emphasize foresight and moral calculation, reflecting his role as a guardian of time and space. For example, his measured responses to Tony Stark's urgency highlight the tension between immediate action and long-term consequences. These interactions underscore the film's recurring theme that knowledge and power are inseparable from ethical responsibility. The contrast between Strange's calm, analytical approach and Stark's reactive, emotionally driven style creates a dynamic interplay that both informs narrative choices and deepens character understanding. The Guardians of the Galaxy provide a contrasting form of humor, emphasizing irreverence, chaos, and camaraderie. Star-Lord's impulsiveness, Rocket's sarcastic quips, and Drax's literal-minded commentary contribute to comedic timing while reinforcing character traits established in previous films. Humor in these sequences is never gratuitous, it simultaneously alleviates tension and illuminates character relationships, providing insight into interpersonal dynamics amidst high-stakes situations. Gamera's more serious, grounded dialogue often serves as a counterbalance, highlighting moral clarity and emotional depth. The interplay among the Guardians demonstrates the film's capacity to blend ensemble humor with character-driven storytelling, ensuring that comedy enhances rather than detracts from the narrative. Interactions among Earth-based heroes further exemplify the film's nuanced approach to dialogue and interpersonal relationships. Captain America, Black Widow, and the Wakandan forces demonstrate a mixture of strategic coordination, emotional candor, and ethical deliberation in their exchanges. Moments of tension between Rogers and Stark reflect unresolved ideological differences carried over from Civil War, providing narrative continuity while also heightening dramatic tension. Dialogue in these sequences often conveys both tactical decisions and emotional subtext, illustrating that communication and collaboration are as critical to heroism as combat ability. Supporting characters, such as Okoye and Shuri, contribute succinct yet impactful exchanges that reinforce cultural context, loyalty, and moral clarity, enriching the ensemble's overall dynamic. Thanos' dialogue stands apart in both tone and purpose. Unlike the hero's banter, his language is measured, philosophical, and deliberate, reflecting his role as a morally complex antagonist. Conversations with Gamera reveal his internal logic, twisted sense of ethics, and emotional complexity, creating a villain whose rhetoric is intellectually engaging even as it is morally reprehensible. These exchanges establish narrative stakes, deepen thematic exploration, and humanize the antagonist, heightening the emotional impact of both his victories and the hero's losses. Thanos' words resonate with the audience because they intertwine personal motivation with universal consequence, ensuring that dialogue serves not only as character expression but as thematic reinforcement. Even brief lines of dialogue are crafted to reinforce narrative cohesion and emotional resonance. Quips during battles, reassurances among allies, and moments of farewell are deliberately positioned to enhance tension, build character, or foreshadow future developments. The film's writers employ language to clarify stakes, convey relational nuance, and provide context for ethical dilemmas, ensuring that interpersonal dynamics are consistently meaningful. The result is a dialogue-rich narrative that balances humor, tension, and philosophical reflection, maintaining audience engagement while deepening character understanding. In sum, dialogue, humor, and interpersonal dynamics in Avengers: Infinity War are intricately interwoven with narrative, thematic, and emotional dimensions. Humor serves as both character exposition and emotional relief, while philosophical and strategic exchanges advance the plot and reinforce thematic motifs. Relationships between characters, mentorship, conflict, camaraderie, and love are explored through dialogue, ensuring that each interaction carries narrative significance. By carefully balancing levity with gravitas, the film creates a richly layered narrative where every line contributes to character development, emotional investment, and thematic depth, solidifying its status as a landmark in ensemble storytelling and cinematic world building. Avengers: Infinity War employs symbolic imagery and cinematographic motifs that reinforce its narrative, thematic, and emotional depth, transforming spectacle into meaningful visual storytelling. From the very first sequence aboard Thor's ship, the filmmakers utilize framing, lighting, and visual symbolism to communicate stakes and character psychology. The Asgardian vessel, portrayed with both grandeur and vulnerability, reflects the fragility of Thor's world following the destruction of Asgard. Thanos' entrance is framed to emphasize dominance, with low-angle shots and stark lighting reinforcing his ideological authority and physical power. Such visual techniques immediately communicate narrative stakes without the need for exposition, demonstrating the Russo brothers' mastery of cinematic language. Color palettes play a central role in symbolic storytelling. Thanos' environments are dominated by desaturated, cold hues, evoking a sense of inevitability, desolation, and moral rigidity. In contrast, Wakanda is portrayed with warm, vibrant colors that signify life, resilience, and cultural richness, emphasizing the emotional and ethical stakes of the Battle of Wakanda. Similarly, New York sequences balance urban realism with the ethereal glow of Doctor Strange's magical constructs, creating a visual juxtaposition between the human and the supernatural, the familiar and the extraordinary. These color motifs not only enhance aesthetic appeal but also subtly cue the audience to the thematic undercurrents of each location and conflict. Visual symbolism is woven throughout character design and mise-en-scene. Thanos' gauntlet, adorned with the 6 Infinity Stones, functions as both a narrative device and a symbolic representation of absolute power, moral temptation, and existential consequence. Its presence in frame often frames other characters' emotional responses, reinforcing the gravity of their actions and decisions. Thor's Stormbreaker axe similarly carries symbolic weight, representing not only physical power but also a renewed sense of purpose and agency. The design, lighting, and cinematography surrounding these artifacts elevate them beyond mere props, transforming them into visual anchors for the narrative's philosophical and emotional themes. Cinematographic motifs extend to camera movement and composition. Tracking shots during battle sequences maintain spatial clarity while emphasizing the fluidity and choreography of action. Long takes are often employed to highlight coordination, tension, or vulnerability, allowing the audience to experience sequences in real time alongside the characters. Close-ups are selectively used to capture emotional nuance, particularly during moments of moral dilemma or personal loss, such as Gamera's sacrifice or Vision's vulnerability. By oscillating between wide shots and intimate framing, the filmmakers ensure that both spectacle and character-driven storytelling coexist harmoniously. Lighting design reinforces emotional tone and thematic resonance. The interplay of shadows and highlights often mirrors narrative tension or moral ambiguity. For instance, Thanos is frequently bathed in shadow, suggesting both the obscurity of his moral reasoning and the looming threat he represents. In contrast, heroic sequences often employ diffused, warm lighting that accentuates unity, courage, and human resilience. These lighting choices operate not only on a visual level but also psychologically, guiding audience perception and emotional response throughout the film. Environmental storytelling is another key technique. The design of each location, Titan, Wakanda, Nohir, and Thanos' ship, is imbued with narrative significance. Titan's desolate terrain reflects the stakes of cosmic conflict and the aftermath of prior battles, reinforcing a theme of destruction and impermanence. Wakanda's architectural sophistication and natural beauty reflect both technological advancement and cultural heritage, heightening the emotional stakes of defending Vision and resisting Thanos' forces. Even Nohir, with its chaotic, industrial aesthetic, conveys a sense of unpredictability and moral ambiguity, mirroring the Guardian's ethical complexity. These environments are not mere backdrops, they actively contribute to storytelling, reflecting character states, thematic tension, and narrative progression. Symbolic visual motifs extend to action choreography as well. The composition of battles often mirrors thematic dynamics. Heroes aligned against overwhelming forces visually represent unity versus tyranny, while individual duels highlight moral, emotional, and physical struggle. The framing of Thanos versus multiple heroes emphasizes the inevitability of conflict, while moments of hero vulnerability are accentuated by composition and camera perspective, deepening audience empathy. The integration of CGI, practical effects, and live-action performance ensures that these visual motifs are both believable and emotionally resonant, maintaining immersion across the film's expansive canvas. In conclusion, Avengers: Infinity War utilizes symbolic imagery, cinematographic motifs, and visual storytelling techniques to reinforce narrative, thematic, and emotional depth. Color palettes, framing, lighting, environmental design, and action composition are all deliberately orchestrated to communicate stakes, character psychology, and moral themes. These visual elements operate in concert with dialogue, character arcs, and narrative structure, creating a cohesive cinematic experience that is both spectacular and meaningful. By leveraging these techniques, the film transcends conventional blockbuster storytelling, transforming each sequence into a layered narrative tableau that engages the audience intellectually, emotionally, and aesthetically, further solidifying its enduring significance within the MCU and contemporary cinema. The musical scoring and sound design in Avengers: Infinity War are central to the film's emotional resonance, narrative cohesion, and thematic depth, functioning as both a storytelling device and an atmospheric enhancer. Alan Silvestri's score operates on multiple levels, simultaneously accentuating tension, underscoring heroism, and providing continuity across the film's sprawling ensemble cast. From the opening sequence aboard Thor's ship to the climactic moments of the snap, the music punctuates action sequences, conveys emotional subtext, and reinforces character psychology. Silvestri employs recurring motifs that echo prior MCU films, subtly linking characters and storylines while creating a cohesive auditory universe that mirrors the interconnected narrative structure. Action sequences benefit immensely from precise integration of sound effects and musical cues. The clash of weapons, explosions, alien technologies, and magical constructs are designed to have distinct auditory signatures, allowing the audience to discern specific actions and stakes amidst chaotic visual sequences. For instance, Thanos' strikes carry a weighty, resonant tone that communicates both his physical power and narrative dominance, while Doctor Strange's magical manipulations are accompanied by layered, ethereal textures that evoke otherworldliness and strategic foresight. These sound motifs are not merely decorative but functionally integrated to enhance comprehension of complex, multi-character sequences, ensuring that both spectacle and clarity are maintained. Silvestri's use of thematic leitmotifs reinforces character identity and emotional arcs. Tony Stark/Iron Man's musical cues often reflect ingenuity, tension, and emotional vulnerability, while Steve Rogers' themes emphasize resilience, leadership, and ethical steadfastness. Thor's sequences are accompanied by motifs that evoke heroism, grief, and transformative purpose, reflecting the emotional weight of his arc. Even minor characters receive subtle musical identifiers, such as the Guardians of the Galaxy's eccentric, vibrant motifs that echo their chaotic energy and moral flexibility. These leitmotifs not only support audience recognition but also provide emotional continuity across disparate locations and narrative threads, binding the multi-threaded story into a cohesive auditory experience. The auditory experience extends beyond music into the diegetic soundscape, which meticulously conveys both realism and fantastical elements. The battle environments Titan, Wakanda, New York, and Thanos' ship are populated with layered sounds that communicate spatial scale, technological sophistication, and narrative stakes. Ambient sounds, such as the rumble of collapsing terrain or the hum of alien technology, create immersive settings that deepen audience engagement. Dialogue is carefully balanced within these auditory layers, ensuring that emotional beats and critical exposition are never lost amidst the chaos of battle, reinforcing clarity without diminishing spectacle. Symbolic use of sound is particularly evident during pivotal emotional moments. The moment of Gamera's sacrifice is accompanied by subtle musical restraint, emphasizing tragedy and moral weight rather than spectacle. Conversely, heroic ensemble moments, such as the Avengers' stand in Wakanda, employ soaring orchestral themes that evoke courage, solidarity, and hope, reinforcing thematic resonance. The juxtaposition of silence, subtle motifs, and full orchestral intensity allows the audience to experience both personal and cosmic stakes, creating an auditory narrative that mirrors the visual and thematic complexity of the film. The sound design also contributes to foreshadowing and tension. Recurrent sonic cues signal impending danger or narrative significance, subtly guiding audience expectation and emotional response. For example, Thanos' approach is often accompanied by low-frequency vibrations and ominous tonal shifts, alerting viewers to his presence and heightening suspense. Similarly, the auditory texture of Infinity Stone-related sequences carries distinct timbral qualities, reinforcing the narrative importance and otherworldly nature of these objects. Through these techniques, sound becomes a narrative device in its own right, complementing dialogue, visual imagery, and character action. In addition, the integration of musical and sound motifs supports thematic exploration. Themes of sacrifice, ethical dilemma, and heroism are reinforced not only visually and narratively but also sonically. The interplay between character-specific motifs and overarching musical themes creates layers of meaning, allowing audiences to perceive subtle relationships between narrative arcs and emotional stakes. This auditory layering enriches the viewing experience, transforming the soundtrack into a complex narrative tool that enhances comprehension, emotional engagement, and thematic depth. In conclusion, the musical scoring, sound motifs, and auditory symbolism in Avengers: Infinity War are integral to its storytelling mastery. Alan Silvestri's score, combined with meticulous sound design, provides emotional resonance, narrative clarity, and thematic reinforcement across the film's expansive scope. From character leitmotifs to diegetic environmental sounds, auditory cues guide the audience's perception, heighten tension, and underscore moral and emotional stakes. By carefully intertwining music and sound with visual and narrative elements, the film achieves a holistic cinematic experience, where auditory artistry amplifies spectacle, character development, and thematic coherence, solidifying its place as a landmark achievement in modern blockbuster filmmaking. Avengers: Infinity War is remarkable not only for its visual spectacle and ensemble storytelling but also for its profound psychological and philosophical exploration of heroism, villainy, and moral dilemmas. At its core, the film interrogates what it means to wield power responsibly, the ethical consequences of choice, and the human or superhuman capacity for sacrifice. Each character, from the most powerful beings like Thanos and Thor to ostensibly secondary figures such as Spider-Man and Shuri, faces challenges that are simultaneously physical, ethical, and emotional, making the film a study in moral complexity rather than mere entertainment. Thanos exemplifies the film's nuanced approach to villainy. He is not motivated by greed, revenge, or personal vendetta in the traditional sense; rather, his actions are driven by a philosophical, utilitarian calculus that frames his genocidal plan as a necessary evil for the survival of the universe. This rationale creates a moral paradox: while Thanos' goals are arguably coherent within his logic, the cost is measured in innocent lives, love, and ethical compromise. His psychological characterization is compelling because he exhibits emotional depth, particularly in his relationship with Gamera. He experiences grief, attachment, and even a form of paternal affection, yet these emotions are subordinated to his ideological commitment. The audience is confronted with a villain who challenges conventional moral binaries, prompting reflection on the nature of ethics, responsibility, and rationalization in positions of power. Thanos' willingness to sacrifice Gamera to obtain the Soul Stone demonstrates the ultimate collision between personal affection and perceived universal necessity, elevating the narrative beyond a simple battle between good and evil. Heroism in Infinity War is similarly complex, reflecting both ethical conviction and human vulnerability. Tony Stark's journey is particularly illustrative. While previously defined by technological ingenuity and individual heroism, he is confronted with existential stakes that demand strategic foresight, emotional restraint, and moral judgment. His relationship with Peter Parker exemplifies mentorship, responsibility, and the psychological burden of leadership. Stark's choices throughout the film, especially his willingness to face Thanos directly despite overwhelming odds, illustrate the ethical dimension of heroism. It is not merely defined by action or physical strength but by the courage to act in alignment with moral values, even in the face of potential failure. Stark's decisions, grounded in both intellect and empathy, reflect the film's broader assertion that heroism entails the integration of thought, feeling, and action. Steve Rogers' moral steadfastness is another lens through which the film explores heroism. Rogers embodies ethical consistency and resilience, navigating dilemmas that pit personal loyalty against strategic necessity. The tension between Rogers and Stark, rooted in differing ethical perspectives, exemplifies the psychological complexity of leadership under extreme pressure. Rogers' commitment to protecting life, even when doing so threatens tactical advantage, foregrounds a philosophical question central to the film: when faced with impossible choices, to what extent must ethical principles be maintained? The film positions these conflicts as psychologically taxing, showing that heroism carries emotional consequences, moral responsibility, and potential personal sacrifice. Thor's arc further illuminates the psychological dimension of heroism. Having suffered the loss of his people, home, and family, Thor experiences survivor's guilt, grief, and a compulsion toward retribution. His emotional journey reflects the interplay between trauma and moral agency, demonstrating that heroism is inseparable from the psychological cost of past events. His collaboration with Rocket and the Guardians provides a counterpoint. Relational dynamics, humor, and empathy become essential tools for moral and strategic decision-making, illustrating that heroism is not solitary but relational, rooted in cooperation, trust, and shared responsibility. Secondary characters also embody philosophical and psychological exploration. Doctor Strange's decisions emphasize the moral weight of knowledge. Foresight enables strategic action but also imposes ethical responsibility. His choice to surrender the Time Stone, despite immediate loss, reflects consequentialist thinking and highlights the tension between short-term morality and long-term utility. Similarly, Wanda Maximoff's dilemma regarding Vision balances personal attachment against the imperative to prevent cosmic catastrophe, illustrating the emotional and ethical strain inherent in superhuman heroism. Even characters with less screen time, such as Okoye or Shuri, demonstrate psychological resilience, moral clarity, and ethical commitment under pressure, emphasizing that heroism manifests across multiple forms, ages, and cultural contexts. The philosophical tensions extend beyond hero-villain dynamics into broader questions of fate, inevitability, and choice. The Time Stone, the Infinity Stones collectively, and Thanos' calculated intervention suggest a universe governed by causal interconnections and deterministic constraints. Characters navigate these forces through ethical reasoning, intuition, and emotional intelligence, revealing that free will exists within the context of constraint. The moral dilemmas they face are amplified by the scale of potential consequence. Actions that might be ethically minor in isolation acquire profound significance when considered across a cosmic canvas. This interplay between determinism and agency underscores the psychological complexity of the film, inviting viewers to reflect on ethical frameworks, moral courage, and the consequences of choice. Sacrifice is a recurring motif that merges psychological and philosophical analysis. Gamera's death exemplifies the ethical cost of heroism, while Vision's vulnerability and eventual disintegration highlight the tension between personal attachment and strategic necessity. The disintegration of half the universe's population during the snap forces characters and viewers alike to confront the emotional consequences of loss on a massive scale. These sequences elevate the stakes beyond physical conflict, exploring grief, responsibility, and the limits of human or superhuman resilience. They prompt reflection on the nature of duty, the ethical imperatives that guide action, and the psychological toll of witnessing or enacting irreversible decisions. In conclusion, Avengers: Infinity War intricately weaves psychological and philosophical considerations into its narrative, elevating the film beyond spectacle to a meditation on moral responsibility, heroism, and villainy. Thanos challenges conventional ethical frameworks, while the heroes grapple with the consequences of power, choice, and sacrifice. Emotional depth, moral ambiguity, and psychological realism underscore that heroism is as much about ethical integrity and relational dynamics as it is about physical prowess. By exploring these dimensions across a sprawling, multi-character narrative, the film engages audiences intellectually and emotionally, creating a layered cinematic experience that resonates long after the screen goes dark. The interplay of heroism, villainy, and moral complexity ensures that Infinity War operates on multiple levels, offering entertainment, philosophical reflection, and a profound exploration of the human or superhuman condition in a universe of extraordinary stakes. Avengers: Infinity War carries profound long-term implications, both for the narrative trajectory of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and for the psychological and ethical development of its characters. The film's climactic snap serves as a narrative fulcrum, reshaping the universe and establishing stakes that reverberate across subsequent installments, particularly Avengers: Endgame. By allowing Thanos to achieve his objective, the Russo brothers subvert conventional blockbuster expectations, transforming what could have been a temporary crisis into an existential catastrophe with enduring consequences. This decision demonstrates a bold commitment to serialized storytelling, ensuring that audience investment in prior films carries substantial emotional and narrative weight. The snap's consequences are immediately felt across multiple narrative threads. Key characters are physically removed from the narrative, altering team dynamics, leadership hierarchies, and emotional equilibrium. Tony Stark and Steve Rogers, long-standing ideological foils, must now contend with diminished resources and altered responsibilities. Thor, grappling with survivor guilt, faces heightened psychological strain, underscoring the long-term emotional cost of leadership and heroism. Secondary characters such as Shuri, Okoye, and Sam Wilson are thrust into new roles, demonstrating resilience and adaptability while navigating a drastically changed world. By altering the balance of power and survival, the film establishes a foundation for complex character evolution, allowing subsequent films to explore themes of grief, resilience, and moral recalibration. Narratively, Infinity War establishes a precedent for consequences that extend beyond a single film, reinforcing the serialized nature of the MCU. The interconnectedness of previous films such as Civil War, Ragnarok, and the Guardians series is now compounded by the snap, which creates both immediate tension and long-term narrative opportunities. Characters' past decisions acquire amplified significance: Tony Stark's previous technological interventions, Thor's failure to fully anticipate Thanos' threat, and the Guardians' impulsivity all contribute to outcomes that cannot be reversed within the narrative's temporal framework. This cumulative storytelling underscores a central theme: choices have enduring consequences, and heroism requires navigating the tension between moral conviction and pragmatic necessity. The film also foreshadows critical developments for Endgame through both narrative and visual cues. Doctor Strange's cryptic actions, particularly his strategic surrender of the Time Stone, hint at a predetermined chain of events that will unfold in the future, emphasizing the interplay between foresight and moral decision-making. Subtle visual motifs, such as the positioning of Infinity Stones and the framing of Thanos during key confrontations, signal narrative pathways and ethical dilemmas yet to be fully resolved. Even the reactions of surviving heroes convey implicit foreshadowing: grief, uncertainty, and the sense of urgency establish psychological trajectories that will drive their actions in subsequent films. These elements ensure that Infinity War functions not only as a climactic entry in the Infinity Saga but also as a structural and thematic bridge, seamlessly connecting past events to future resolutions. From a thematic perspective, the long-term implications underscore the cost of heroism and the ethical challenges inherent in wielding power. Characters are forced to confront the reality that moral choices may lead to irreversible outcomes, a tension that frames Endgame as both a narrative and philosophical exploration of redemption, consequence, and strategic morality. The psychological impact of loss, particularly the disintegration of key figures like Spider-Man, Black Panther, and Doctor Strange, is not only a plot device but a deliberate exploration of grief, survivor's guilt, and the responsibility that falls on those who remain. These psychological threads deepen the narrative resonance, allowing audiences to engage with both immediate spectacle and long-term emotional consequences. The film's structural choices further reinforce these implications. By dividing the narrative across multiple locations and character groups, Infinity War emphasizes the universality of Thanos' threat and the interconnected nature of moral responsibility. Each storyline, Titan, Wakanda, New York, and No Here, illustrates different aspects of ethical decision-making, heroism, and sacrifice. This multi-location approach ensures that no single resolution is adequate, highlighting the complex interplay of individual action, collective responsibility, and cosmic consequence. The narrative structure thereby mirrors the ethical and philosophical complexity explored within the characters' psychological journeys. Moreover, the film's consequences extend beyond character arcs to the broader MCU universe. Civilizations, governments, and societies are disrupted, establishing geopolitical and social contexts that will influence subsequent narratives. Wakanda, previously insulated and powerful, faces existential threat, challenging assumptions about technological and moral superiority. The Guardians' universe-spanning experiences illustrate the fragility of order in the face of ideologically driven extremism. These world-building consequences enrich the MCU's internal logic, reinforcing the stakes for heroes and audiences alike and setting the stage for the ethical and strategic resolutions explored in Endgame. In conclusion, Avengers: Infinity War establishes enduring long-term implications through its narrative consequences, foreshadowing, and ethical complexity. By allowing Thanos to succeed, the film transforms the MCU landscape, imposing psychological, moral, and strategic challenges that will define subsequent installments. Its serialized storytelling, coupled with visual and thematic foreshadowing, ensures continuity, narrative depth, and emotional resonance. The film's exploration of loss, consequence, and heroism provides a rich foundation for the philosophical, strategic, and emotional arcs realized in Endgame, cementing Infinity War as a pivotal installment that reshapes both character trajectories and the universe itself, while demonstrating the narrative potential of high-stakes, morally complex blockbuster cinema. Avengers: Infinity War achieved a cultural resonance that extended far beyond the cinematic experience, influencing global discourse, fan communities, and popular culture. Upon its release, the film sparked unprecedented levels of audience engagement, fueled by both narrative risk-taking and the emotional stakes of its storyline. Social media platforms were inundated with reactions, fan theories, tributes, and debates, reflecting the film's ability to catalyze collective emotional and intellectual investment. Memes, detailed character analyses, and discussions of moral and philosophical themes proliferated, demonstrating that audiences were not merely consuming spectacle but actively interpreting, debating, and theorizing about the implications of Thanos' actions and the hero's responses. This level of engagement highlights the film's impact as a cultural phenomenon, shaping discourse around ethical dilemmas, heroism, and narrative complexity. The film's reception also underscores its significance within a global context. Infinity War set records across multiple international markets, reflecting the MCU's widespread appeal and the universal relatability of its themes. The universal resonance of heroism, sacrifice, and moral responsibility transcends cultural and linguistic boundaries, enabling audiences worldwide to connect with character arcs and narrative stakes. Moreover, the film's diverse ensemble cast and globalized narrative settings including New York, Wakanda, Titan, and Nohir reflect a commitment to inclusivity and cosmopolitan storytelling, enhancing cross-cultural engagement. This universality contributed to the film grossing over $2 billion worldwide, making it one of the highest-grossing films of all time and a landmark in global cinematic achievement. Merchandising and commercial impact further demonstrate the film's cultural influence. From action figures, apparel, and collectibles to video games, digital content, and themed experiences, Infinity War established a commercial ecosystem that extends the narrative and emotional experience into tangible, everyday interactions. Characters such as Thanos, Iron Man, and Spider-Man became iconic figures, with their designs, poses, and associated symbols integrated into consumer culture. The Infinity Gauntlet, in particular, emerged as both a narrative and marketing symbol, representing ultimate power, ethical consequence, and audience fascination. By bridging storytelling with consumer engagement, the film reinforced the MCU's position as a cultural and commercial juggernaut, demonstrating the potential for blockbuster films to influence both entertainment and lifestyle markets. The film also catalyzed broader fan discourse, inspiring critical analysis, philosophical debate, and ethical reflection. Thanos' philosophical rationale prompted discussions about utilitarian ethics, the morality of population control, and the tension between long-term consequences and immediate harm. Similarly, the hero's decisions, sacrifices, and failures invited commentary on leadership, relational dynamics, and the psychological burden of heroism. This discourse extended into academic and media contexts, with scholars and critics examining narrative structure, character psychology, and thematic resonance. Infinity War thus functions not only as entertainment but also as a platform for cultural and intellectual engagement, illustrating the capacity of blockbuster cinema to inspire reflection on ethical, social, and philosophical questions. Globally, the film's reception reflects both its artistic and cultural impact. Critical acclaim emphasized narrative ambition, technical mastery, and emotional resonance, with particular praise for ensemble coordination, visual effects, and character depth. Audience reactions mirrored this appreciation, though with heightened emotional investment, particularly regarding the climactic snap and its consequences for beloved characters. The collective experience of viewing, discussing, and theorizing about the film fostered a sense of shared cultural participation, highlighting the unique capacity of blockbuster cinema to unite audiences around narrative, ethical, and emotional engagement. This shared cultural experience was amplified by promotional strategies, social media interaction, and fan-generated content, creating a dynamic feedback loop that enhanced the film's cultural imprint. Additionally, the film's aesthetic and narrative choices influenced subsequent media and pop culture. Its visual language, action choreography, and character design set new standards for blockbuster filmmaking, while its narrative risk-taking inspired other franchises to embrace serialized storytelling, complex moral dilemmas, and ensemble character arcs. Fan communities actively engaged in theorizing future events, dissecting character motivations, and debating ethical outcomes, reflecting the film's ability to sustain discourse beyond the theater. Its integration of spectacle, philosophy, and serialized narrative demonstrates that cultural impact is not solely measured by revenue but also by the depth of engagement, interpretive activity, and collective emotional investment it generates. In conclusion, Avengers: Infinity War represents a milestone in global popular culture, achieving both commercial and cultural significance. Its reception, merchandising influence, and audience discourse highlight its capacity to shape entertainment, consumer behavior, and collective interpretation. By engaging viewers emotionally, intellectually, and ethically, the film transcends conventional blockbuster cinema, establishing a lasting cultural footprint that resonates across generations, societies, and media platforms. Its global impact underscores the MCU's ability to integrate narrative complexity, ethical inquiry, and emotional resonance into mass entertainment, solidifying Infinity War as a defining cultural and cinematic phenomenon of the 21st century. Avengers, Infinity War demonstrates an extraordinary mastery of cinematography, editing, and visual composition, particularly in its handling of large-scale battles and character-driven sequences. Cinematographer Trent Opeluk and the Russo brothers orchestrate camera movement with precision, blending dynamic tracking shots, aerial perspectives, and intimate close-ups to maintain clarity across multiple, simultaneous action threads. The film's battle sequences, such as those in Wakanda, New York, and Titan, are choreographed not merely for spectacle but for narrative legibility. Each hero's abilities are framed distinctly, with camera angles emphasizing their physicality, strategy, and emotional state. The choreography of movement within these frames ensures that the audience can follow spatial relationships among characters and their environments, which is essential when managing an ensemble of such unprecedented scale. Editing plays a crucial role in sustaining tension, pacing, and narrative coherence. Jeffrey Ford and Matthew Schmidt employ a rhythmic approach, balancing rapid cuts with extended takes to preserve both clarity and emotional resonance. High-intensity sequences, like the confrontation between Thanos and the combined heroes on Titan, use quick cuts to convey urgency and kinetic energy, while slower cuts during moments of dialogue or moral dilemma allow viewers to process character decisions and stakes. Cross-cutting between disparate locations Wakanda, Titan, and New York is meticulously timed to maintain suspense, establish causal connections, and ensure that emotional beats are not lost amidst action. This editing strategy creates a narrative flow that is simultaneously expansive and coherent, enabling the audience to experience multiple storylines without cognitive overload. Visual composition further enhances the storytelling by integrating environmental design, character positioning, and thematic symbolism. In battle sequences, compositions frequently juxtapose isolated heroes against overwhelming enemy forces, emphasizing both vulnerability and courage. Strategic use of foreground and background layers allows the viewer to perceive depth and spatial relationships, making complex action readable while reinforcing narrative stakes. In moments of moral or emotional significance such as Gamera's confrontation with Thanos on Vormir or Wanda's struggle to protect Vision, symmetrical and asymmetrical compositions highlight relational dynamics, ethical tension, and psychological weight. The careful interplay between character placement, framing, and environmental context ensures that each shot communicates narrative, emotional, and thematic information simultaneously. Lighting design complements cinematography and composition, using contrast, color, temperature, and shadow to guide audience perception. Thanos' ship is often depicted with stark, directional lighting that emphasizes his imposing presence and ideological certainty, while environments like Wakanda employ warmer, natural light to convey cultural richness, heroism, and hope. Tactical lighting choices accentuate emotional beats, such as the dim, reflective lighting surrounding Gamera's sacrifice, which visually underscores both gravity and tragedy. By aligning lighting with narrative and character intent, the film reinforces psychological engagement and thematic resonance, making each frame communicate beyond its surface spectacle. The integration of CGI with live-action cinematography is executed with exceptional precision. Thanos, rendered through advanced motion capture technology, maintains believability within practical sets and live-action interactions, allowing actors to perform naturally while ensuring seamless visual coherence. Similarly, environmental effects, explosions, collapsing structures, and alien terrain are composited with attention to scale, perspective, and spatial continuity. This meticulous integration preserves immersion, enabling audiences to experience the physicality and emotional reality of characters' struggles within an extraordinary, otherworldly universe. Symbolic visual motifs are recurrent across cinematography and editing, reinforcing thematic continuity. The Infinity Stones are often placed centrally or in frames that draw attention to their significance, while character-specific visual cues such as Thor's weaponry, Iron Man's suit interfaces, or Doctor Strange's magical constructs signal narrative function and ethical choice. Editing frequently accentuates these symbols, juxtaposing their presence with emotional or philosophical consequence, which heightens dramatic tension and underscores moral stakes. Even subtle visual alignments, like the positioning of heroes against silhouetted adversaries or converging battle lines, reinforce narrative clarity while conveying symbolic meaning. The film also employs visual pacing to differentiate narrative threads. Space sequences, such as the Guardians' pursuit of Thanos, utilize expansive, sweeping shots that communicate cosmic scale and spatial disorientation, emphasizing the grandeur of interstellar conflict. Ground-based sequences, including the Battle of Wakanda, utilize tighter framing, rapid tracking, and dynamic angles to maintain immediate tension and highlight relational stakes among heroes. By varying visual tempo, composition, and spatial representation, the film ensures that each narrative thread retains distinct visual identity while contributing to the larger mosaic of action and emotion. In sum, Avengers: Infinity War exemplifies sophisticated cinematography, editing, and visual composition, demonstrating how technical artistry can amplify narrative clarity, emotional resonance, and thematic depth. The careful integration of camera movement, framing, lighting, cross-cutting, and CGI allows the film to manage a sprawling ensemble cast across multiple locations without sacrificing coherence or impact. Visual motifs and symbolic placement reinforce character psychology, ethical dilemmas, and narrative stakes, transforming battle sequences from mere spectacle into layered storytelling experiences. Through this meticulous attention to visual and editorial craft, the film achieves a cinematic language that is both immersive and narratively rich, solidifying its position as a landmark in contemporary blockbuster filmmaking. Avengers: Infinity War presents a sophisticated interplay of moral philosophy, contrasting the ethical frameworks of the heroes with Thanos' utilitarian worldview. Thanos operates from a strictly consequentialist perspective, believing that the elimination of half the universe's population is necessary to achieve long-term balance and prevent resource depletion. His philosophy, while ethically extreme, is presented with internal consistency and emotional depth. He demonstrates commitment, strategic foresight, and a willingness to endure personal loss, as evidenced by the sacrifice of Gamora for the Soul Stone. Thanos' approach raises profound ethical questions. Can the ends ever justify means of such magnitude? Is there moral validity to a utilitarian calculus that prioritizes survival over individual rights and emotional bonds? These questions force both the heroes and the audience to confront uncomfortable realities, elevating the narrative beyond conventional action storytelling into philosophical inquiry. The Avengers, in contrast, operate from deontological and relational ethics, emphasizing the inherent value of life, moral principles, and the protection of others, even when doing so may compromise strategic advantage. Captain America exemplifies this framework. He prioritizes moral rectitude and loyalty to individuals, guiding his decisions by an ethical compass rather than immediate pragmatic outcomes. Tony Stark, while often pragmatic and strategic, is guided by responsibility and empathy, particularly toward younger or more vulnerable characters like Peter Parker. Doctor Strange incorporates consequentialist reasoning selectively, surrendering the Time Stone to preserve a singular path toward ultimate victory, highlighting that even heroes must navigate moral trade-offs in the face of cosmic stakes. The contrast between Thanos' utilitarian extremism and the hero's principled, relational morality underscores the film's exploration of ethical tension and the psychological weight of choice. Sacrifice is central to this philosophical dynamic. Gamora, Vision, and the disintegrated heroes represent both literal and symbolic costs of ethical decision-making. Gamora's death exemplifies the personal toll of moral action. She is sacrificed by a villain guided by utilitarian rationale, while heroes face analogous dilemmas in attempting to mitigate harm without compromising their principles. Vision and Wanda's struggle over the Mind Stone similarly embodies ethical complexity, juxtaposing immediate emotional attachment against the broader imperative to preserve life and prevent universal catastrophe. Even the Avengers' collective decisions, whether to confront Thanos directly or defend strategic locations like Wakanda, reflect constant negotiation between principle, pragmatism, and emotional investment. Thanos' philosophical coherence is further complicated by his emotional attachments, which humanize but do not mitigate the consequences of his actions. His love for Gamora conflicts with his commitment to his mission, illustrating that moral philosophy is never purely abstract, it is enacted within a psychological and relational framework. This intersection of ideology, emotion, and consequence heightens the tension between heroism and villainy, emphasizing that moral decision-making in extreme circumstances entails